So very good evening to all. Today I'll be talking about the kidney diseases in a diabetic, and there are many of them. And I have also kept my talk simple so that it answers most of the questions of the physicians. And at the outset, I would like to thank the scientific committee for inviting me over here. So physicians see a huge number of diabetic patients, and variety of renal diseases can occur in a diabetic. Broadly speaking, we should remember a diabetic can have two types of renal diseases, to put it simply. One is diabetic kidney disease or diabetic nephropathy, where it is directly because of the effects of diabetes. This occurs in up to 75% of diabetics. Out of the many kidney diseases, 75% is generally because of this. The remaining 25% have kidney disease, which is because of effects other than diabetes, because of some other drugs or maybe some other factors which I'll be discussing. So a diabetic patient may not always have kidney disease only because of poor glycemic control. So let us first come to the major one, diabetic kidney disease or diabetic nephropathy. Remember, up to a third of all diabetics can develop this dreaded disease of diabetic nephropathy or diabetic kidney disease. Diabetic kidney disease in India has become a huge burden. Why I say so? In a population of 1.3 billion Indians, can you imagine we have 1 lakh people developing end-stage kidney disease, needing dialysis or transplant only because of diabetic kidney disease. So this is the major cause of kidney failure in our country. 1 lakh is a huge number by any standards. So how do we define this diabetic kidney disease? It is generally defined as a slow progressive disease with proteinuria, with falling GFR, with increase in blood pressure, generally has a gradual progression towards end-stage kidney disease. Nowadays, we are having non-proteinuric diabetic kidney disease as well. So as you can see, as I said, generally it's slowly progressive. You have some latent period as well where you can intervene. Then you have onset of proteinuria. Subsequently, the GFR falls down and the patient progresses to end-stage kidney disease. So generally is a slow progression, especially in type 1 diabetes. In type 2, the stages may be shortened. So now coming to the cases. We have a 60 years old diabetic patient coming to your clinic. He is a diabetic for 3 years. He has a good glycemic control. He is controlled with metformin. He doesn't have any other comorbidities. Is screening for kidney disease needed in this patient? Yes or no? Yes, it's needed. And what tests would you do? So screening for kidney disease is needed because remember that diabetic kidney disease is a silent killer. It may be absolutely asymptomatic, and you have to look for it. Therefore, screening is needed. And screening tests, remember, basically two. Look at the urine protein, more specifically the urine albumin, and look at the GFR. That is, just look at the creatinine, and you can calculate the GFR. We all know we have smartphones where you can easily fill in the value of creatinine and calculate the GFR, or you can insist your lab to do it. How frequently we should do these? In a patient who is otherwise normal, do it once in a year. And when should we start doing it? In a type 2 diabetic patient, right from the onset of diabetes, from the first year itself, you have to do these tests annually. What about type 1 diabetic? In a type 1 diabetic, you can start screening after first 5 years. And after that, carry on these tests annually. So as I said, urine protein can be a urine albumin excretion. And we all know that we have to look for albumin in the urine. You can ask for a Micral test. Normal urine albumin is 30 milligram per day. And more than 300 is called macroalbuminuria. Nowadays, we don't use the term macro. We call it moderately increased and severely increased. But the meaning remains the same, that you should look for albumin in urine. Less than 30 milligram per day is normal. Anything more than 30 milligram per day is abnormal. And this should be checked when the patient is not having any urinary infection or the sugars are completely uncontrolled. there you'll have a falsely elevated albumin. So the first screening test is checking for urine protein, albumin. In some centers, we do not have albumin available. You can look for the urine protein as well. Urine protein can be checked by dipstick, or you can look for spot urine protein creatinine ratio. Anything more than 0.2 is significant. So either urine albumin or urine protein. This is the first screening test, should be done once in a year. And what about the second test? As I said, GFR. And this is the smartphone calculator. All of us are smart physicians. Most of us have a smartphone. And this app you should download, where you just fill the value of creatinine, age, you fill the gender and race, and you calculate, and you easily get the GFR. This is mandatory. We can be sued for not having a GFR on our prescription. Or you can ask your lab to do it. They can also do it. So this patient with a normal-looking creatinine of 1.2 milligram per DL had a GFR of 65. Normal GFR is above 90. So he already had a stage of kidney disease. He was in stage 2 CKD, but we were not aware because we were just looking at the creatinine. So these two screening tests are important, looking at the urine protein and the GFR. And then we have these divisions of kidney disease. The stages are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 based on GFR. And A1, A2, A3, it's not come properly. So A1, A2, A3 is based on the urine albumin. So even if you are not able to pinpoint and name the stage, at least you should be able to classify based on the GFR. So now this patient had a urine micral which showed 100 milligram per day or 100 milligram per gram of creatinine. And GFR, as I said, was 65. So he was already in stage G2, A2. So he had some element of chronic kidney disease. G2 because the GFR more than 90, 90 to 60, 30 to 60, 30 to 15, and below 15, that's how we calculate the GFR stages. So this patient had G2, A2. So what would we have done? Had we known that he had microalbuminuria, we would have added either ACE or ARB. And the second important thing we might have done is, we all know that as per the guidelines now, if the patient has diabetic nephropathy, SGLT2 inhibitors can also be used in addition to metformin. So these two steps might have been taken had we calculated the GFR and looked at his albuminuria. And if this was missed, we would have mistreating him. Coming to case 2, 60 years old male, type 2 diabetic, 15 years. Now he has CAD, CVA, he has retinopathy also, and now he has swelling and oliguria since 6 months. So what tests will you do? Simple enough, we look at the urine examination. He had 3+ protein. 24 hours urine protein was 2 gram per day. Creatinine was 1.8, and GFR was 50. So we found out that he was in stage 3 of diabetic kidney disease, 3A. But what next? So most of the times we calculate this much and do not do the remaining tests. What remaining tests should be done? In most of the patients who come to your clinic, they would be in these stages, the early stages of CKD, CKD stage 2, stage 3. So apart from the glycemic tests, remember kidney has many other functions. It looks at the creatinine, urea, electrolytes, uric acid, and acids also. This is also a kidney function. It looks after the fluid overload. It controls the erythropoietin production. Anemia is a manifestation. Bone disease is a manifestation because vitamin D is, again, the active form is produced by the kidney. And it manages the blood pressure as well. So kidney has 5 other functions apart from just filtering creatinine and urea. And that's the basis of doing the tests in such a patient. So whenever the GFR goes down, you have to look at other parameters as well. Electrolytes, sodium, potassium, bicarbonate, and chloride, uric acid. Anemia parameters, always do a CBP and an iron profile. Mineral bone disease, remember to do calcium, phosphorus, vitamin D, PTH, and X-rays, and ultrasound for kidney size. So these tests should also be a part of prescription, and they can be repeated annually. And they have to be done in those patients where the GFR falls less than 60. So it's important not to miss these tests as well. So this patient's investigations showed that he had anemia, he had iron deficiency, he had low calcium, high phosphorus, low vitamin D, and he had dyslipidemia. So these parameters should always be done in a patient who has diabetes with even early stage of nephropathy. So what do we do for this patient, second patient? Which anti-diabetic do we use? We are all well familiar with it, that up to a GFR of 30, most of the anti-diabetic medications, oral ones, can be used. Metformin also can be used till 30. Then safer ones among the sulfonylureas are glipizide and glyclazide, which can be used even in end-stage kidney disease. The glitazones can be used, but be aware of the fluid overload. In an overloaded patient, we avoid them. Similarly, you can use the alpha-glucosidase inhibitors in the early CKD, not in the late CKD. Gliptins can be used even in later stages of CKD, but need dose modification. Linagliptin does not need a dose modification. And apart from that, you have SGLT2 inhibitors, which you know that they can also be used up to 30. So up to 30, most of the drugs can be used. Below 30, you can safely use insulin, glipizide, glyclazide. You can use gliptins with dose modifications, which are safe. So the first parameter is to control the glucose. Now, this patient was on metformin, and once we identified that he had nephropathy, the latest ADA guidelines say that SGLT2 or GLP-1 agonists should be a part of his prescription, especially if he has nephropathy. So this patient can be put on SGLT2 inhibitors, keeping in mind the other contraindications. But otherwise, this is a good drug to add as far as nephropathy retardation is concerned. Then about the gliptins, we have Carmelina trial also here, where linagliptin has been shown to be safe. We knew already that it can be used across GFR from 0 to 100. Linagliptin can be used, but this Carmelina shows that it has renal benefit also and reduces albuminuria by 14%. So it is renal safe, as also it has some renal benefit. So this drug can also be a part of prescription. So whenever we are treating these patients of diabetic kidney disease, apart from hyperglycemia management, remember the other management as well. Remember the 7 vows of marriage. We have 7 steps of treatment: management of hyperglycemia, which I already told. Hypertension, the drugs of choice are either ACE or ARB, any of them. Target of blood pressure is, if proteinuria 130/80. In case the blood pressure is not controlled with ACE or ARB, you can add the other drugs, diuretics, and calcium channel blockers. Lipids, always add statins for all patients of diabetes above the age of 18 years with any evidence of nephropathy. So any patient with diabetic nephropathy over the age of 18 years, even if the lipids are normal, statin is always a part of the prescription because this long-term CV risk is high. Then diet and lifestyle modifications, management of anemia, as I already said, management of bone disease, and others. Others include management of hyperuricemia, acidosis, avoidance of nephrotoxic drugs, and vaccination. So average patient coming to your clinic with diabetes, always check GFR and protein. Many of them would fall into that category. 30 to 40% have some evidence of nephropathy, and they would deserve all this treatment, and this should not be missed. So this patient was put on metformin, SGLT2, telmisartan H, then atorvastatin. He was given dietary advice. Anemia was managed with iron and erythropoietin. Mineral bone disease with calcium, vitamin D and phosphate binders. And hyperuricemia was managed, and he was vaccinated as per the guidelines for diabetic nephropathy patients. Hepatitis B, varicella, influenza, and pneumococcal vaccine were given. So this can be done at the level of physicians, even before referral to the nephrologist. Nephrology referral is to be considered between a GFR of 30 to 60, but below GFR of 30, it's mandatory. And we should take care about dietary advice: protein, potassium, and phosphorus. Manage the 3 Ps, so to say. So you should ask them to avoid high protein diet. Normal non-veg diet to be avoided. Normal vegetarian diet is quite fine. Potassium, high potassium sources should be avoided. And salt has to be restricted, ½ teaspoon per day if the patient is hypertensive. So in the second patient, apart from that, we should look for other micro and macrovascular complications as well. Ma'am already told about diabetic nephropathy. Don't forget about the heart, neuropathy as well, diabetic foot, fatty liver disease. So all these things should be a part of your prescription. So we have talked about an early diabetic where no problems were there, but we have done an assessment for detection of microalbuminuria. We have talked about the second case who was already in stage 2, stage 3 nephropathy, where I told you we have to follow the 7 sacred vows. This is the third case where the patient is already having a creatinine of 8 milligram per DL. GFR is below 30. And this is the case you should straight away refer to the nephrologist. So this patient went on peritoneal dialysis for 6 months, later on was taken for hemodialysis, and finally underwent a kidney transplant. So that's the treatment of choice in a patient who goes into end-stage kidney disease. Thus, we have discussed 3 aspects of diabetic kidney disease which may be seen by you. Early, where there is no evidence, you have to screen for it. Second, where you have to screen for it, or it may be visible, but you have to follow the 7 commandments, give all the medications apart from glycemic control. And third case, you have to refer to the nephrologist. Now let us know something about non-diabetic kidney disease. So I have talked about these 3 cases where the patient had kidney disease because of diabetes itself. Now, when to think of non-diabetic kidney disease in a diabetic? It will look regular diabetic patient coming to you with some high creatinine. How do you identify that it is something different, non-diabetic kidney disease? The causes of non-diabetic kidney disease can be many. It may affect the glomerulus inside the kidney, vessels inside the kidney, or the tubules and interstitium. Now look at this case. 55 years old male, again type 2 diabetes, 10 years, creatinine 1.2 milligram baseline. He had some fever, oliguria, creatinine shot up to 5. Now, is this diabetic nephropathy? So how do we answer this question? Whenever there is a short duration of diabetes, rapid rise in creatinine, always check the fundus. This did not have any retinopathy. The other important thing is to look at the ultrasound. So always look at fundus and also do an ultrasound. Now this patient did not have any obstruction. Ultrasound was normal. Urine culture was done, which showed no pus cells. Urine showed protein, and there were RBC in urine. Different varieties of dysmorphic RBC were there in urine. So remember, when there is no obstruction, no infection, and the urine shows hematuria and proteinuria, this is the indication for doing a renal biopsy. So on renal biopsy, you can have multiple diagnoses. The patients may show some glomerular diseases, minimal change or FSGS, or may show some infection-related glomerulonephritis, ANCA. They may show ATN. Some patients may have a history of contrast, may present with this picture, and the kidney may show acute tubular necrosis or contrast-related nephropathy. And some patients with history of painkillers may show acute interstitial nephritis on biopsy. So these diseases are generally, they are diagnosed once you subject them to a biopsy. So remember, the indications of biopsy are rapid rise in creatinine, no obstruction on ultrasound, no retinopathy, and in addition to that, you have some protein and RBC. So this is very, very important. Even if some patients have retinopathy, have nephropathy, they may suddenly present with an acute rise in creatinine, and that also is an indication for biopsy because they may have diabetic nephropathy underlying with superimposed non-diabetic kidney disease. And it is important to pick up these diseases because the treatment is different. Many of them need immunosuppression. And these are the cases who are generally referred to the nephrologist. So you should know these are the cases where hematuria, proteinuria, no obstruction, refer to the nephrologist. Most of them would end up needing a biopsy. Now the second scenario, same picture, rapid rise in creatinine. There is no retinopathy, but ultrasound shows an obstruction. So what could be the causes of sudden obstruction with hydronephrosis on ultrasound in a diabetic? It may be because of a stone. The patient needs referral to the urologist for a stenting or any other procedure. What is this? Again, the patient presented with some hydronephrosis. What can you see in the X-ray? This patient presented with, again, same fever, oliguria, some hematuria. What could this be? Any guesses? Yes, so this is emphysematous pyelonephritis. You can see the gas in the system. Even the plain X-ray shows gas there. So emphysematous pyelonephritis, and here the treatment again is you have to give antibiotics, and if there is again obstruction, you need a referral to the urologist for draining of that obstruction. Sometimes surgical treatment is also needed. So this is also important cause of acute renal failure or rapidly rising creatinine in a diabetic. What is this? Again, same picture. Diabetic patient suddenly presented with a rapid rise of creatinine. What could this be? So this patient, you can see this patient underwent an IVP as well. Creatinine was not very high. So you can see that, you can see the papilla there. This is papillary necrosis. This is also important cause of acute renal failure presenting with sudden oliguria and a rise in creatinine. This also needs to be picked up because again the papilla sometimes causes obstruction and needs removal again or stenting again. So this also is an important cause of non-diabetic kidney disease in a patient with diabetes. So remember, all kidney diseases in diabetic is not diabetic nephropathy. Suspect non-diabetic kidney disease if there is no retinopathy or if the patient presents with hematuria or a rapid rise of creatinine or a nephrotic range of proteinuria. On ultrasound, if there is obstruction, generally urology intervention is required. If there is no obstruction but the urine shows RBC, casts, proteinuria, refer to the nephrologist for a biopsy. Many of these diseases may need some steroids and the patient comes back to normal completely. So what are the red flag signs which you should pick up in your clinic when you have to refer to the nephrologist? Consider referral, as I said, if the GFR is less than 60, you can still treat some patients and you are legally safe. But still, you can refer to the nephrologist for one opinion. Referral is mandatory as per the guidelines if GFR is less than 30 or if you suspect a non-diabetic kidney disease, as I already described. So summing up, kidney diseases in diabetic are an important cause of CKD. The treatment of CKD is costly. Prevention is the best option. The kidney diseases can either be diabetic nephropathy or diabetic kidney disease, where you have to diagnose them early by urine albumin and GFR. And if you pick diabetic nephropathy, you have to treat completely, remembering all the 7 points of treatment. The other important thing is not to miss non-diabetic kidney disease. And if non-diabetic kidney disease is suspected and there is no obstruction, you need to refer to the nephrologist for a biopsy. So our data I'll just show, we have a dialysis unit. I work in a government hospital. We do 2,500 dialysis per month in our unit. We are running 4 shifts a day. When the government gave us the machines initially, we were very, very happy. More patients, we are taking up patients. Now all machines are full. Out of these, 1,500 dialysis are for diabetic patients. These patients are our transplant patients. So we have done about 500 kidney transplants, and many of them are diabetic patients. So the major part of our work is diabetes, which progresses to diabetic kidney disease and end-stage kidney disease. We have done cadaver transplants as well. We also did a simultaneous kidney pancreas transplant in a government sector for a type 1 diabetic with end-stage kidney disease. But we were very happy doing this. But we have realized that though the treatment of diabetic kidney disease is available in our country, the treatment is very costly. The average Indian income is 2,000 rupees per month. Transplant is 5 to 7 lakhs. And dialysis itself costs 30,000 rupees per month lifelong. Somebody is paying for it. In government hospital, the government pays, the taxpayer pays, or otherwise the patient has out-of-pocket expenditure. And in India, with multiplication of population and dwindling of budget, which is just 2%, our health budget is 2%, it is impossible to take care of end-stage kidney disease. The only option we have in our country is prevention. And prevention can never happen without the physician being at the helm of affairs, because these diseases need to be picked up early. So thank you very much for a patient hearing.
Thank you very much, Manisha, for an excellent presentation. I invite some questions.
Stockman, ma'am.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Abhinav Chaudhary from West Bengal. I had a patient of diabetes along with having a glomerulonephropathy. So he was put on Visolon from Vaidehi, and the Visolon was continued for about 2 years, then stopped. Then the patient consulted then the symptoms again started, again like pedalinema, oliguria again started, so he was asked to start the Visolon again. Now he presented to me last week with a fasting blood sugar of 540. So now here the steroids are also to be continued, and the diabetes have to be managed. So how do you approach such a case?
So if I heard right, this patient has IgA nephropathy on biopsy?
Yes.
Yeah, so your question is a very practical question. We often face such problems. So whenever these things happen, we try to give steroids, then reduce the dose and switch to alternative therapy as well. So there are other alternate immunosuppressions described for IgA nephropathy. Fish oils, though the evidence is not strong, but there are other medications which can be tried in certain conditions. And in management of diabetic status, if you are unable to give the steroids, you have to reduce the dose of steroids and go to alternative immunosuppression. So the evidence for other alternative immunosuppression in IgA is not that great, but there are certain trials. Even oral steroids can be tried. Budesonide is being tried orally, which has lesser side effects. So there are other drugs, apart from steroids, which can be tried in such cases. And the patient, obviously, without saying, must be on full dose of RAS blockade, which probably you must have put him on that.
One more question. Are like the new molecules coming up which are recommended in initial stages where the GFR is going down, like N-acetylcysteine and all. So does this really benefit the patient for us prescribing?
It does. There is no evidence to that. Neither N-acetylcysteine, taurine, antioxidants. There are some 14, 15 molecules which have been described. And more the number of molecules described, we know that none of them has stood the test of time. So as of now, none of them works well. There is good evidence with bicarbonate. Trial is there. So we believe in the